Begin by taking the cover off the Imacon scanner, gently pull the loading tray down, and press the power button. The scanner will warm up and will be ready for use once the top circle is illuminated in green. Before loading your film into the carrier, please be sure that the protective bumper is attached to the bottom of the carrier, as this will prevent any damage occurring to the scanner or your film. To load your film, gently roll back the magnetized film holder. Take care to not fold it as it will break. Place your film emulsion side down. Carefully align it in the opening of the carrier and roll back the top cover. Lightly press down to remagnetize and blow off any dust using a rocket blower. The carrier has a notch taken out of it that aligns to a screw in the middle of the carrier intake. Use the rails that are on either side of the loading tray to help guide loading the film carrier. It will magnetize to the top if placed correctly. On the computer, log in by clicking on the rental account, which has no password. Move the mouse to the bottom of the screen to bring up the dock, which will contain the Flex Color software. The icon currently looks like this. Once the software has loaded, make sure that in the top left corner it says Preview and not Capture. If it says Capture, ask a staff member for help, otherwise you can begin scanning. Begin by choosing your film type in the Setup drop-down. You can choose a canned preset if you see your film type in the list, otherwise choose Negative RGB Standard for a color negative, Black and White Negative Standard, or B&W Negative Standard for a black and white negative, or RGB Standard for a color transparency. In this case, we have a color negative, so we'll be using Negative RGB Standard. Next, choose the frame type in the frame drop-down. The frame type is written on the carrier itself. If it is not written on the carrier, or you're unsure, just click the A to the right of the frame drop-down. This ensures the auto recognition for the carrier is turned on. With it grayed in, the Imacon scanner will always scan the barcode at the top of the carrier and ensure that the settings are correct for that particular carrier and that it does not intake it in an incorrect manner, possibly getting your film stuck. In short, you should always have this feature turned on. Next, choose the mode for your scan. The Imacon scanner can scan in 8-bit or 16-bit, as well as other mode types. Generally speaking, if you're scanning a color image, you usually want to scan it in RGB 16-bit to get the full range and capability of the scan. If you are scanning a black and white image, you should scan it in grayscale 16-bit. Either way, if you need a smaller file, it's best to scan these 16-bit images and then compress them down to 8-bit in programs such as Photoshop or Lightroom. Now we're ready to hit Preview. The scanner always takes slightly longer for your first scan, as the lamps inside the scanner need to warm up. Once this is resolved, it scans and previews pretty quickly. When the preview is complete, you can make a selection of the image you want to scan. You do so by just single-clicking and dragging your mouse across the area you want to select. If you want to get a better view of your preview, click on the mountain icon near the bottom in the View section. If you click the bigger mountains, you can zoom in, and if you click to the left of that, the smaller icon, you can zoom out. You can also move your frames up and down by holding the spacebar down, which gives you the hand tool, and clicking on your mouse and dragging up or down. You can also go to the far right of the window and drag the slider. Once you've identified the image you want to scan, you may want to make some corrections. Click on the first icon in the corrections section to bring up your histograms adjustment. Before making any adjustments, be sure that the selected area is inside the image, as if you have the selected area outside, the histogram will take that incorrect information into account. To adjust the overall luminosity of the image, move the midpoint slider to the left to make it lighter and to the right to make it darker. The black point slider allows you to define a new black in your image. Usually this goes on the end of your histogram, Bringing it in will just create clipping and loss of information. On the other side, you have the highlight slider, which allows you to define the new white. This usually just goes on the end of the histogram. If you're unsure about managing your white point and black point, you can always hit the A to auto-recognize the tonality of your image. Usually this is a good place to start, and then adjust the other settings. You can also adjust color here by going to the color channels down below. If you move the mid for each color channel, you can adjust the two colors that exist on that. For red, sliding the slider to the left adds more red, and sliding the slider to the right adds cyan, the opposite of red. For green, sliding to the left adds more green, and sliding the mid to the right adds magenta. For blue, sliding to the left adds more blue, and sliding to the right adds yellow, blue's opposite. Once those basic corrections are complete, you can close the window by clicking on the red icon in the top left. Then we can go to the next correction, which is the gradations section. Here, you can adjust shadow depth, which is adding a little bit more luminosity to your deep shadows. You don't want to go too overboard with this correction, but I do find it helpful to get a little bit more detail in each scan. Next, we have the color correction section. Here it is best to actually change the color values in Photoshop, but something quick and easy that you can do is adjust the scan saturation. Next is the texture section. In this section, you can apply sharpening to the scan. Unsharp mask is where you would adjust the sharpening strength. The flex color section is where you would apply the strength for the scratch or dust removal. This is post-processing software which will blur the image if taken too far. The unsharp mask section will over-sharpen the image if done too aggressively. A good balance needs to be found for your own imagery. I like to begin by doing 30 in each, scanning one image, and then looking at it inside of Photoshop to see how it looks. If it looks too sharp, then you may want to bring down the unsharp mask value. If it looks too blurry, you may either want to up the unsharp mask value or reduce the flex touch value. If adjustments need to be made, I recommend adjusting them at 15-point values. Next, we need to adjust the selected area to ensure we're scanning the entire image. Hover the cursor over the dotted line or the marquee selection to drag out each edge. After doing so, the output size is auto-filled in for you. We do need to adjust the PPI or resolution of the image. Notice if I go to the highest resolution, it goes to 344 megabytes. If I go to the lower resolution, it only is 0.77 megabytes. I recommend scanning everything at the highest resolution possible. Then we're ready to hit scan. However, before scanning begins, you must name your file and choose a save location. I recommend saving your images to the desktop by clicking on the desktop in the left column and creating your own new folder. Name this new folder whatever you would like, click create, and choose the file type. Here we have the ability to choose TIFF or JPEG. TIFF is the higher resolution file, where JPEG is more of a compressed format. Be sure to scan to the desktop, as scanning directly to an external drive or thumb drive can cause errors. Once you hit save, the scanner will begin the scanning process. Once scanning is complete, it's a good idea to review your files inside of Photoshop to make sure that no errors occurred and that the sharpness values are where you like them. Once all scanning is complete, be sure you brought a thumb drive with you or an external drive to copy your files to take them home. Plug this in to the back of the computer. Wait for it to load. It should show up on the desktop. Then simply drag and drop the file you created onto your external drive. Wait for it to copy and you're ready to go.